Thank you everybody for tuning in. I am Mr. ADHD Games, Matt Ryan. For any of you guys tuning in at 9 o'clock for the interview, thank you so much for being here. I have someone really cool here with me. Somebody that we've been playing some Overcooked with. He only caught the kitchen on fire once.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's the
just once.
one.
Just once. We were doing pretty good. Rocked out plenty of stars and had fun. But this is somebody who, when I first started actually learning about ADHD, um, was super significant to me. So, Chris, thank you so much for being here. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you saying that. You're too kind to me. Um, but yeah, my name is Chris. I'm originally from England. Now live in California. And I have a YouTube channel, Me with ADHD, which I started quite a long time ago, a couple of years back when I was first diagnosed with ADHD. I was working at a job where I had somebody who worked closely with me, and he was like the person who kind of said to me like have you ever been checked out for ADHD? And I was like, no, what do you mean? He's like, well, he's like, I'm talking to you now, but you're like tapping your foot, spinning your spinner, and also doing work at the same time while having a conversation with me. And he's like, it's not normal, dude. And I'm like, well, I've always been like a multitasker. That's just kind of how I've done things. And he was like, yeah, dude, it just you should at least check it out. And I went to get it checked out, and they were like, the first person I interviewed with was like, yeah, they're like, yeah, you're definitely ADHD. We should get you with somebody to talk about that. So yeah, and I thought like at the time I'd never really read much into it. Like ADHD is like for our parents, ADHD is one of those things where like because I asked my dad like, did you ever notice that I was ADHD when I was a kid? He's like, oh yeah, like totally. And I'm like, well, why didn't you do anything? And he's like, well, he's like, oh son, like that's just who you are. That's just a part of who you are. And I'm like, yeah, but it didn't have to be. Like, treated, it could have been a lot better. My grades wouldn't have been like all suffering and, I wouldn't have been like hyperactive, like whatever. And my focus could have been better if I'd have learned these techniques that I know now on stuff. But part of me like is thankful for that, I guess, like because I got to build over 28, 30 years, whatever, a tolerance to like, or not a tolerance so much, but like my own techniques for dealing with ADHD without anybody else's help. And it's like you build up these own techniques that when you actually do get medication or you get like, somebody to talk to about it, it's like you've done all of this difficult work and then now you're just adding to that, which is really great. But yeah, like I was saying, our parents don't really know, like they didn't really know ADHD. They didn't really like it wasn't really a thing, so like they didn't kind of care about it. And um when I first got diagnosed, I was like, right, I'm gonna look on YouTube and see like who's there and what to talk about. And there was, of course, How to ADHD, Jessica. She's like the staple for like ADHD content. She's massive and like I liked her content at first, and I was like, oh, this is really great. Not to say I don't now, but like I like when I first watched it, I was like, oh, this is great, but um it's very like poppy and bouncy and kind of like like young friendly, I want to say. And like my own personality, I'm more like I like to like hear more about like the emotional side of things and like the like down to it, like this is how it affects me in my life, as opposed to like scientists say that this and this and and books that you can read on this. So like I felt like there wasn't any content like that out there when I first started the channel. I was like, right, well, I guess I'm gonna start it myself, and that's what I did. I started out with the Adderall vlog, which is like the vlog first day. I did like a one and one, so I did first day, 10 days, 100 days, like that kind of thing, 1 year, and And that's kind of where it all kicked off. But you can, one notifier that I am ADHD is you'll see how I bounced around the conversation there to about five different things.
Yeah, no, and it was perfect. Like it's absolutely everything was relevant. But that's the same thing as like you have your parents who they're they were told just to deal with it if they felt that way.
Yeah,
And I mean, it's something that can be genetic. So it's very
right.
possible that your dad or mom struggled with the same things and the response to them was, well, you just got to straighten up. You just got to behave. You got to sit still.
Yeah,
And so that's the only way they knew how to deal with it. And I think that's one of the cool things, especially for us who are parents of this just about the same year old daughters, is like if our child happens to have ADHD, which I don't know about you, but I'm always like hyper like watching for like
oh
signs and
yeah,
symptoms. Like I'm always on the watch.
yeah,
But yeah, I'm like I don't I have the tools. I have this toolbox and the capacity to be able to help her and like be able to really get through it. And I don't,
yeah.
yeah, of course, I'm sure you don't either, but like, we don't fault our parents for it. But you're
No,
like, man, it would have been so cool. But yeah, I'm super glad everything happened how it did because
yeah,
your channel, you're exactly right. Like, how to ADHD is one of my like, it's the best thing when you first start. The videos are short and they're
yeah,
upbeat. And there's a couple of them that are really honest, but that was the thing I was drawn to with yours. Is yours felt really legitimate and honest. Like some days suck. Like this
yeah,
today was a crappy day, and like I felt like I needed that sometimes, like to
right.
recognize that like although ADHD comes with all these cool things, that some days it's gonna be harder.
Yeah,
Um, so we have a
it's
question
true.
from chat here. They said, appreciate that you're sharing your stories. Um, in the 90s, there was so much stigma around ADHD. Was that the case for you? And was the stigma still the same outside of the US? So, were you, when you were growing up with ADHD, was that um, in England or was that here in the States?
It was in England. I actually didn't come out here until I was about 23. But it was unheard of. Like I didn't even like know what ADHD really was until I was out here and I was like 25. Like, like I didn't even kind of know what any of that was. I Mental health really was like, I don't know, like it has a big stigma around it, more so in America than it does in England. Like it kind of is very disappointing at times, the mental health system in America. I feel like sometimes it's out to not help people, and it can be a struggle. I remember watching a video that Jessica did on her channel where she was in tears over like trying to get her medication sorted out and people just weren't helping her, and like it's just like such a disappointment. And like my wife had like and I have like tried to get in touch with healthcare people after I lost my last job due to COVID. Like, and we had to switch our health providers and all that. Like getting mental health help was like such a mission. Like it's just kind of shocking, really. Until you like go through it and experience it, you don't understand like how difficult it can be. And like I guess to the stigma part of it, yeah, like my parents like my parents are really good. They're like really understanding. They're really, and very helpful. My dad works as a teacher at a disability school, and my mum has worked all of her life in like care homes for people with disabilities and for elderly. Like so they have a lot of compassion and like understanding, but they are victim to their parents where you know, their parents were like, that silly meme where it's like, oh, this was ADHD medication when I was a kid, and it's a picture of a guy holding a belt, and it's like, it's so disappointing and disheartening, and I feel like, every generation tries to do a bit better. Like, maybe my parents dropped the belt, but they didn't drop the like, well, just pick yourself up and, you'll be all right kind of attitude.
Yeah,
And
like if
then
you
we're at
try
the
hard
point,
enough, you can do this. Like you're just
yeah,
not trying hard enough.
Yeah,
sort of
I
thing.
cannot tell you the amount of report cards that I have in my life that say those exact words on them. Chris is so talented, but if he just applied himself in and focused properly, then he would and stopped disrupting, that he would be so much better off, you know?
Yeah, and it stinks because like the things you enjoy about schools tend to focus on the social aspect because you find that as like a home for a place of something that you don't feel like you're bad at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And the harder things to focus on are very difficult, very exponentially more difficult to focus on. And like, I don't know, like you know how like hyperfocus goes, and you can get so like hyperfocused on projects and things like that that you kind of obsess over them. And like for me in school, there was classes like that, where like I would like IT and stuff like that. I would be like so obsessed with going into computing classes and stuff that like I loved that kind of stuff, and I would like really be like excelling in them. History, surprisingly, was another one. I excelled in that because I loved it so much. It was so interesting to me. And like there was other classes that just absolutely like I couldn't even get the normal level of focus to focus on. It's very polarizing and difficult.
So through that, it sounds like obviously you found things that you were passionate about and you found things that you could really get on board with.
Right.
Mine wasn't necessarily history, but like Greek mythology, anything surrounding that was like super intriguing to my
Yeah.
mind. I'm like, I want to know everything about this. But when you were going through school, did you find that you had teachers that understood really well or worked with you, even though you obviously didn't know what ADHD was and weren't diagnosed? And on the other side of that, were there teachers that you felt like kind of held you back or were like harder on you that like might have really made things harder for you than that needed to be?
Yes, I would say like so I wasn't diagnosed at all. Like there was no like even if you ask my teachers, they probably wouldn't say I was ADHD because I don't think it's strange. I don't think at that time like I knew anybody in my class who was considered ADHD or considered like there was learning difficulties was like one part of it, whereas like people with like dyslexia and stuff like that, but like not ADHD. It just didn't seem to like be a thing. Like so I guess I didn't have like the support in that sense, but I had the support of certain teachers who knew A, how to handle me, or B, like there was a lot of so like for instance, one teacher was like a support teacher for another student who had learning difficulties but could see my attitude and like would like, oh yeah, she would like help me to try and focus too, and then that would be a great help. But for my main teachers, not really. There wasn't anybody who one or two maybe when I was in like the lower grade, when I was like 10, 11, 12, that kind of age. But as I grew up much, much more difficult to handle in classes. And then when I showed up for classes, at that point, it was like I was there basically to, I was either disrupting or it was only classes that I enjoyed doing. So I think I was very much a hard time for teachers, and I think at one point they just kind of were like, whatever, let's just deal with Chris for the next hour and then be done.
And that's frustrating. I mean that especially
Yeah,
when you're that young because you you feel like they're looking at you like lazy and I feel like you're looking
yeah,
at like as the bad kid. Like that was the one thing that got me is I always had felt like ADHD was the bad kid disease. Like if you had it that means you
yeah,
couldn't behave. And so that was always like the rough stigma around it when I was kind of growing up. Um so, as somebody
yeah.
who's become a father, I want to ask you, in the 2 years that your daughter's been hanging out, what are some challenging things about having ADHD with a daughter, and what are some things that you love about having ADHD and having a daughter?
Okay, let's go. Sleep, not lack of sleep. That is the absolute, hands down, the most difficult part of having a kid. I am so tired all the time, and the problem with being tired with ADHD is your medication barely works when you're tired. So like it throws all that off. And like you think that it's hard to focus on a normal day, try focusing on 3 hours sleep. It's outrageously difficult to do. So like that's a big one. I also um think that like on the good side, like having a lot of like energy and like a lot of playfulness about me, like is a big plus as well. Like I love playing like getting down and playing with the kids and like, um my daughter loves it too and like my knees are regularly bruised from crawling around in the on the hard floors and and all that kind of stuff. But I just love it because it just I don't know, like, that's just like who I am as a person, and I've always been like that. I was always the fun uncle before I was the dad, and then now I'm the dad. I'm just like the same, but with my own child. So those are definitely things that like are difficult, but I also love as well.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, no, it's one of my favorite thing is just I feel like the fun parent. Like, and I know my
Yeah,
wife is super fun. Don't want to discount that, but like I feel like I'm the one who will be goofy and I'll be
yeah,
ridiculous because it's just like I don't know whether it's impulsive or like I don't know. I feel so excited to just be the goofy parent. Um,
right.
so I noticed behind you, and I'm really interested to hear how has piano been going? Have you continued on with that?
I wish I could tell you it's been going amazing. I do.
Is it an
I got
ADHD
like
thing where you're just like, all right, time to
yeah,
move
it was one
on?
of those short-lived obsessions. And like I don't know if you saw my video on that. I like tried to coin it. Like I mean, maybe people are also have as well. But short-lived obsessions are these like things that you hyper focus on for so long. Like so, like you get like so invested in it, right? That you like buy all the stuff for it. It's like all you do for the next like week is literally live and breathe that thing. And then like a week later, it's like you've never even heard of it. Like it's just gone and you never ever like well, it's kind of the same for the keyboard piano over there. I I keep intending if you look in like my notebook, it's like on the top of my like hobby to do kind of things to get back to, but like I never should. I really should. I got like halfway through learning Aerith's theme sorry no Tifa's theme from Final Fantasy
Oh,
VII. Like that was like my goal was to learn some Final Fantasy piano tunes, which yeah, as again a typical ADHD trait, set your bar so high that it's practically unreachable and then get upset when you don't reach it. Like that was kind of my goal. And yeah, I got halfway through it. My wife was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe how well you're doing." And then a week later, it's collecting dust, unfortunately.
now I want to talk about something that happened kind of differently, that I'm really excited about. So, a couple years ago, and I'll let you talk about why. You kind of stopped streaming and stuff. And I, in my head, had thought at first that maybe it was the ADHD thing where you're like, okay, I'm kind of over this, on to the next thing. But come to find out when you posted a recent video, it was just because you had a lot of changes. And I know we talked about it a little bit earlier, but I was going to let you kind of
Yeah.
talk to it a little bit more. And I actually am going to step over here for just 1 second while you talk. I'll be right back.
Yeah, well, I had a lot of change that went on. Like, unfortunately, with COVID happened, like right before my daughter was kind of born. I think my wife was like I don't know, like coming on 6 months pregnant by when we first found out, like when, towards March when like COVID started to be a big thing. And the current company that I was working with were like, they ended up laying off like half the company. One of whom was myself, so we're in a little bit of a scary time there of like I don't know what to do and I don't know how we're going to do it. Luckily, I ended up finding somewhere else to work, but some of my time off was due to that. And then also, it was due to the fact that my daughter was born. And I was like, I just felt like I needed to take a step back for a little bit and just be a dad, which is what I did. I stepped back and I was a dad for a while. and also was working full time in this new job. Um, and just the combination of those two things was like, it's shocking how much of your time it takes. Like you're working during the day, and I work from home, which is like, you'd think you have more time, but I definitely have like less time because your office is at your house, so you can just pop in at any time and start working if you need to. So like, and when I'm not working, I was with my daughter, but I get a lot of it was because I just needed the time to just be a dad, and enjoy it, and that's kind of what I did.
That's awesome. No, it's one of those things I appreciate because I also went into quarantine and ended up being a stay-at-home dad unintentionally, kind of.
Wow.
And it's like, um, I'm now back at work and I'm back to conventions, but it was so unique to go through that time. And honestly, I appreciated having that much time with my daughter because it was like those special moments. And I know that you have
Great, huh?
tons of them too, but like it's super great to be able to spend those like first couple years. It felt like getting to experience that as a family a little bit.
Right. Yeah, I
But
agree.
yeah, the mental health part of being in quarantine, let's talk about that a little bit. So
Yeah.
I I know I struggled tons through quarantine. I mean, it was a rough time, and I know a lot of it was because of ADHD. When you're trapped in your house and there's finite things to do, finite things to
Yeah.
stimulate your brain,
Yeah.
um, it gets rough. So let's talk a little bit about that. What things did you find challenging during quarantine because of having ADHD?
The biggest one obviously was the transition of working from home as opposed to going to an office. Like being in your house, like is like it's like you have a different mentality at home, You have like a more like, oh, like I know that the TV and the fridge is like right there, and I know that like, or like I know that like this is my PC I'm working on, but I also know that there's like video games like in on it too, and how do you like separate that kind of like that life from the office life? That I found very difficult. And also like a big one for me, like I find that I am I guess I've been always been in a little bit of denial about this, but I'm very much like I think an extroverted person, and I come to find that over COVID. I always like felt that like, oh yeah, but I do enjoy my time on my own more than I do that. I enjoy like playing Final Fantasy games and stuff like that, where I'll just be able to like be on my own for like 8 hours straight, and just play on these games. But when COVID happened and I was working from home, I found that like that loneliness of being here on your own and not having like somebody next to you to communicate all the time with and stuff is very like overwhelming, and it kind of reduces your productivity, makes you feel a little bit isolated. And I tend to like, I don't know about you, but like I tend to go like a little bit weird when I've spent a lot of time on my own. I go a little bit like stir crazy, and like I need to like talk, and like so like my wife will come home and I'll like unload on her like all the stuff I've been thinking about in the day. She's exhausted from her day of like, because she's a hairdresser. So she's the opposite. She's out there and talking to people all day, and then she comes home and has to entertain my voice for
Oh,
like,
yeah.
and it's just like it's a strange one, but that was a big adjustment for me. And um, you know, like I guess that was the biggest one for me. And I do get like bouts of like, I'm sure a lot of people do. I get like these bouts of like depression. Like I just spiral a little bit every now and again. Like I'll kind of feel it coming, and this is one of the things that is like a thing about being a parent that I find hard sometimes. I spoke about it in a recent video, but like sometimes I can like disconnect. Like I can like fully, almost like I'm outer body. I just get like so like disconnected from the world and everything around me that emotionally I'm not there. And like my wife will be like, "Oh, like, are you listening? Are you there?" And I'm just kind of absolutely in space. And having a daughter or having a child, like it's so much harder to do that. Like as normally I would just kind of zone out on my phone for hours on end, and that, that's kind of where I'm at. With a daughter, I have to force myself out of that and like be a parent, and it's that like is a big change for me, like, and I'm really trying, but I do struggle with that a lot sometimes.
That's that's a good way to put it because yeah, the as cool as it is to have a daughter and watch her learn things and teach her things and work with her on stuff, it doesn't
Yeah,
always give you that dopamine stimulus that you need. Like it gives you that
yeah,
excitement and that happiness for sure. Like all of that is there, but nothing to really stimulate that dopamine push to get you
right.
going. Yeah. So I know we talked a little bit about photography. We've touched on piano. Um, are there any other hobbies that you are into right now that you weren't into um, at the beginning of quarantine?
Drawing. I'm
Drawing.
trying to
Okay.
do drawing right now. I bought a if you can, I bought a drawing tablet,
Oh
you
wow.
know, and I was like, oh, you know what? Let's just as again, as impulsive as we are, I was like, oh yeah, let's just drop $250 on this, and now I have to justify it. So, but truthfully, I the my company, I like have a graphics designer that works with me, and like he does a lot of cool stuff. And one thing that like I always felt like we were missing was a little bit of like motion, like animation. And I'm like a big fan of like Jaden animations and like the Odds Ones Out. If you haven't seen those guys on YouTube, they're amazing. You should watch them. They like tell these life stories. They'll tell stories about their lives and they'll animate the whole thing with their little character of them and like makes it really funny and like my channel is about telling stories of my life, and so like I really enjoy that, and it makes it especially more fun to watch an animated version of it, and that like really inspired me to start drawing. And I'm not very good by any means, but like I'm trying to like learn, and it's one of those things that I'm actually trying to stick by. I probably stuck to this longer than I stuck to the piano, but yeah, that's one thing that I don't know if you class it as a hobby, but gaming has always been like my biggest passion, like other than film and video. Like so I play a lot of video games in my spare time.
So,
I'm
all
assuming.
right, let's touch on that. We're gonna go ahead and dig that vein. So, top no, not top three, not in any order, just the three of your favorite video games. I hate when people put top because it makes it adds so much pressure to it. Give me
Right.
three video games that you would say are classics, like must plays for people.
Metal Gear Solid 1, Final Fantasy 7, and Resident Evil 2.
Whew. Resident Evil 2 is one of the first games I remember scaring me to not be able to sleep. I
Yeah.
there's a hallway you walk up and down like 100 times in the game, and then all of a sudden one time when you walk up and down the hallway, poof, arms bust through the
Yeah.
door, and like
Right.
whew, man, the sweat pours down. Man, that
Yeah.
was some sweaty ones.
That
Okay,
is a good
and
game.
we're gonna say three movies that you would say that anyone should see, like they gotta see them.
That one's rough. Lord of the Rings trilogy. I'm gonna class them as like one, okay?
Okay,
Because
that
they're
works.
like they're a must do. Seven is an amazing movie. Um, Something emotional. I would say like maybe a Ghibli movie. I would say like Howl's Moving Castle or Spirit, not Spirited Away. So I do like Spirited Away, but Princess Mononoke is better. I would say like those. I'd say those.
Princess Mononoke was actually one of the first anime movies I ever saw, and I was just floored. I was like, I
Yeah,
love this. This is so cool.
it's amazing, huh? I loved that so much when I was a kid, and and I love like if we're gonna I'm gonna I try not to get a tangent on anime, but like I like one of the best series ever made, Full Metal Alchemist. absolutely amazing series. I love that, and there's a movie of that as well. And then Cowboy Bebop is also like one of my favorites, and that is a movie as well. And me and my friends loved those movies so much that we would like take the movie, download the movies, cut them up, and like make music videos out of the movies, like these these like compilation videos of like fighting scenes from each movie to like song like Foo Fighter songs and stuff like that. It was a lot of fun.
Chat is blowing up with like your game choices. They're all in love with them. Metal Gear Solid 1 is getting a ton of love. Resident
Yeah,
Evil
dude.
scared people out of their pants. Oh man. Those
They're
yeah.
good because Metal Gear Solid is amazing. It was the first game was amazing. Like everything about it is, I would say, like everything about it is perfect. Like it was really really good, and I loved that. Like each playthrough, you can do the different playthroughs. Amazing. I love that. Like each playthrough gave you something new, like the invisibility cloak or the all that kind of stuff. The ribbon, the for your headband, all that kind of stuff was cool. And they actually made a remake of it for the GameCube called Twin Snakes, which was also amazing as well. It was like imagine like imagine like the first Metal Gear Solid, but with the second Metal Gear Solid graphics. It was like that like more updated version of it with like cooler cutscenes in it and stuff. But that was amazing as well. And Resident Evil 2 was always my favorite out of all of them because I loved like first of all I loved like that game anyway. Like it was the first Resident Evil I think that I completed. But also I loved that like there was like scenario A and B for each character. There's like four different times you can play
Yes.
through it.
Yes,
And then there
that
was like
was
the
the
Hunkin
best.
Tofu ones as well. And it was like,
Hmm.
dude, there's so much to do on it. And I remember I think I must have got like under 3 hours, I think is my playtime for that game. Like it's the fastest game that I can complete. I just love it. Everything about it feels so classic from like the music in there and like even on my phone now, if someone wanted to call me, my ringtone is either fanfare from Final Fantasy or it's the savory music from Resident Evil 2. And I also have like the sound effects for like going through the menus is the same on my phone. And like I just love that stuff, man.
That's killer. So I see that you also have a Oculus headset behind you. Have you
Yes,
played
I do.
Resident Evil 4 on there yet?
Or I haven't played it yet,
I
and that's
haven't
just
either.
because.
Yeah.
Oh, so why haven't you played it?
Oh, so yeah, get my headset on. I feel like when I bought it, I don't want to say it was one of those like hobbies and then like
Right.
off, but that's
Yeah.
kind of what it felt like is the gaming for me a lot is about community and getting to hang out with my friends online and getting to play with
Right.
fun people and chat and get to like I don't know, it brings me a lot of joy to get to connect with my friends and connect with new people. So gaming is big for that for me,
Right.
especially board games too. It's like I go to these conventions and it's about connecting. And so with the headset, I only have Tuna, who was playing with us earlier, is the only other one who has it. And so a lot of times I like to play games with other people. It inspires me to keep going a little bit. And so we played a ton of walkabout mini golf, like so much. We used to play it like
Yeah.
every Sunday for a while. We called it tea. We had tea time. We'd play it.
Oh, it's
But
cool.
other than that, Beat Saber is the one that's really got me. When I put it on, it's like just want to play Beat Saber. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I get that. I'm the same. I bought it like with the intentions of playing Beat Saber, and my wife really liked Beat Saber. We both became obsessed with it. Our friends, like, when you get to that like married age where like you have like one married couple who you can tolerate hanging around with. Well, we're at that now. We have our one couple, and they liked it too, and they got one. Like, so we play it a lot. Together, but like maybe one or two like horror games, and obviously Richie's Plank Walk like is a really big one. Like, but you know, other than that, like I don't want to say it was a novelty, but like that, like it's one of those things that you really have to be in the mood to play VR to play it. Like, it's not like my Switch where I can just pick up and play Animal Crossing or like whatever, whenever I want to. Like Switch, you're like really committing, man. You have to like have a whole play area. You have to like, get into it and do all the stuff for it, and it's just like a lot, man. So I should give it more time than I do. but I just don't. And I also agree with what you're saying about being like a community experience gaming. I like part of the reason like Final Fantasy VII is my favorite I keep saying Resident Evil is my favorite Final Fantasy is because my cousin got it when he was like when we were like 11, 12, something like that. And he got it for his birthday and we were all round his house when he opened it and like we were like what is this, and he just like popped it in and played it. And then like fast forward like and the people who were at his party I'd never even really met. Fast forward to a year later, all those friends are like my absolute do or die best friends. Like they are like my absolute core friends, and it's all built over the love for that game, like how much we loved that game. And like that's why it's so special to me. But like that obviously opened to like, us hanging out all the time. We'd play a lot of Mario Kart together. We'd play a lot of so it's called Star Fox Adventures out here, but it was called Lilac Wars, the European version of it.
Oh,
Like
okay.
but like we'd play a lot of that, like in the versus mode with the fighter planes, and that was a lot of fun. And we had like a few like Japanese games and stuff that we'd play together. One's called Bishi Bashi Special or something like that, which nobody's ever heard of, but it's almost like a mixture of like WarioWare and Mario Party. And it's
Ooh.
like it's so amazing. So like we play that as well. Mario Party we'd play on my N64 a lot, and like I think that like d to me that's why, and controversial opinion here, to me that's why I think Nintendo is the best games maker out there. And it's because they always focus on like the couch co-op and the couch multiplayer. Like they don't do online that well, but like consistently from SNES to GameCube, they have like mastered, even to the Wii actually, they've mastered like getting together with people and having fun. You know what I
Always,
mean?
yeah. After N64, every console had four controller slots. Like
Yeah,
they never went back to anything less than four. Like it
yeah,
just kept going. Whereas like everybody else, I mean, it started going wireless, but like everybody else was like not as
right.
committed. They're like, we want you guys to play in the same room, which was
Yeah,
huge. And then their transition with Switch to online has actually been pretty good. I've been pretty impressed, like with Animal Crossing Online and
yeah,
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 like those ones. Like I've been super impressed when I've gone online because it's pretty smooth. I'm always
yeah, yeah.
pretty happy about it. Okay, so I would always like to ask this question, and it gives you a chance to kind of shout out people who have really helped you, because there's obviously a bunch of people as cool as we are and as amazing powers as we have. We always need some help. So who have your biggest supports been for just figuring things out and really getting to where you are now?
My dad is a big one. My dad has always been like supportive of me, and he's always like um he's very easygoing, my dad, and he's just like a good dude. The problem with that is that sometimes he's too good. Like, my dad is like my mom and dad divorced when I was very young. Like, and it was tough on our family, and like my dad just kind of, you know, he moved out and he got his own place and everything, and he still contributed to the place that we lived with my mum, as well as the place that he lived on his own, as well as at the same time he was like working in like a toilet paper factory or something at the time, like just like a factory worker. Like during that time he would have us a lot as well, but also went to night school and did university on night school, and then got his degree, and then became a teacher, and then became a disability teacher, then became special in he became the specialist in autism, and then at one time he was headmaster for a bit, and then my dad is like he's like up here for me, and sometimes like that is like it's amazing, but it's also like you look at it and I'm like, if I could be like a fraction of that person, then I'd be super proud of myself. But it also like leaves that expectation of like sometimes you think you can't be as good as that, and that's also a problem with that. And although he won't say that, My dad will say to me that if I wanted to be a garbage man, and then he'd be more proud of me than if I was a doctor. Like that's just who he is. But that just adds to it as well, because he's just good like that. But he's always been someone who supports me and through all of it and everything, and that's been really cool. No matter what I do, no matter what trouble I get into or like stupid things I would do as a kid, he's always like, he'd always have my back. So. And my wife as well. She's kind of taken a little bit of that mantle now. She's always lifting me up, which is nice, and she's a very good mom, which is really nice to see. And like she just accepts me for who I am. Well, the biggest thing which I haven't even spoke about on here is my Tourette's is a big part of my life, right? Like it's very difficult sometimes to spend all of your day like there's the focusing issues and all that, but then I also exhaust like a lot of my time not doing ticks and stuff like that and like trying to suppress Tourette's. That is like very exhausting to me. And sometimes I just have these moments where I just can't take it anymore and I just have these big blowouts where I just like get not frustrated with other people, but I get frustrated with myself. Laurel is like so cool with that. Like she just knows my feelings. She knows she understands that. And like even at night when I'm like constantly clearing my throat every 2 seconds, and she's like trying to sleep next to me, and it's like 3 in the morning, she doesn't even care. Like, and that's like a bigger thing for me than anything is the fact that it's like who I am. So she doesn't worry her. So those two are very big in my life.
Yeah, it sounds like both people who just very much accepted you for who you were, and
Yeah,
even
for
though
sure.
like even when you weren't accepting yourself for who you were, which is I know with ADHD is one of the
Common.
hardest things. Yeah, like that's what we do. We're
Yeah,
like, oh, if we can act like everybody else, no one will know. Um,
right. And if you're told that your whole life, if you're told that you stand out your whole life and that you need to start out your attitude and you need to be better, then why would you believe that you could be better? You know what I mean?
mhm. Okay, so
Yeah.
I always close out with kind of a silly question, and I always like to think of one that's kind of fun. So specific to you, um, if you had to be stuck on an airplane with one type of candy when you were traveling, what would it be?
Starburst.
Starburst. Okay. A specific
Yep.
color or just the tube and they have to keep rotating for you? Or it's a type of like tropical? Like
I would
we got to
take
get more specific here.
okay, can I create one?
Oh,
I would
like create your own tube of Starbursts?
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. What colors are in
I
there? What do
I
we?
would get like it's different out here as well. It's
Oh,
it
okay.
like do you guys have the lemon flavor in Starburst out here?
Yeah, the yellow. I think ours
Yeah,
goes like pink,
they
yellow,
gotta go.
orange, red.
Right. Well, in England, we've got green and yellow in there. You've got lime and lemon. Both of those gotta go.
Oh, okay. All
Absolutely.
right.
I don't like any candy that tastes to me like I think cleaning products taste like. So anything lemon is not my thing. Um, but I love the orange ones. I love the red ones. I would add a couple of tropical ones in there. The pineapple kind
What
of
about
ones
the
are really
pink one?
good
We
as
have some
well.
people in chat saying the pink are the best.
Yeah, pink are pretty good.
All right.
Pink, I'm not gonna lie, pink are pretty good. They're like, I don't know, they're a bit like over liked though. Like they even have like that packet where you can get only the reds and the pinks, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I
that
think
one
like
exists.
orange is underrated, dude. Orange is a really good flavor.
All right, I think I typically avoid the orange and yellow, but I'm not gonna say the orange are bad. I just definitely I would gravitate towards that only red pack. But
Okay,
if
well
I had
that's all
one
right.
candy on a plane, it would probably be Kit Kats. I love Kit Kats.
Kit
Like,
Kats are good, but you
oh,
but
so
you run the
good.
risk of like feeling sick after a little while, like.
That's true. That's very
You
true.
know, one I'll say like it was close in my mind. I know I answered that very quickly,
Yeah,
and that's because
like quick.
Starburst have always been my favorite candy since I was a kid. But I tried what do you call them when I first came out here, Sour Patch Kids, and they are like bomb. They're
Yeah.
so good.
Have you had the ones that are like watermelons?
Yep,
Those were my favorite Sour
amazing.
Patch Kids. Ooh. Yeah, that's awesome.
Oof,
That's
that's
a
so
great
good.
second choice. It's a super
Yeah.
awesome second choice. Well, thank you, Chris, for sharing your story with us and talking to us. I hope we have you back again because it's been awesome to hang out with you. But we are going to go ahead and end the interview. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And we're going to get back to playing games. We're going to take like a 5-10 minute break. I've had a lot of hydration requests. So I'm going to go take care of some stuff. And we'll be back in just a little bit. But thank you, Chris. And we'll see you guys later.
Yeah. Thanks very much for having me on, man.